What I wanted to do was keep playing that video intro because I have COVID. It's the worst week to get COVID when you've built a 15-year career on covering WordPress news, only to get to the most anticipated week for WordPress news. But here we are. Thanks, everyone, for joining. If you can hear us, see us okay, let us know in the chat. It's going to be an interesting topic today as we dive deeper into the 7 layers of hell. I don't know. I don't know what we're getting into here. But this debate of Automattic versus WP Engine. What is WordPress? Who controls it? What do we have as an open source community? What do we have as a community say in all of this stuff? Do we? Do we not? I don't know. If you're in the chat, let us know. Say hi. Mark Zemansky, already there. Probably DMing me right now. Why wasn't I on the show, man? That's probably what he's saying to me. But 2 wonderful guests, friends of the show, Courtney Robertson and Brian Cords. Welcome, folks, to the program.
Thank you so much for having me on that. It's been great to follow the WordPress news in the 15 years. I'm pretty sure I was out pushing baby strollers listening to your podcasts back when my not so littles were even littler.
Fantastic.
It's why we call him the podfather of WordPress, you know?
Yes. It's a dangerous title to take in podfather of podcasting because I am friends with him, actually. And, I don't want to take that title from him. So letting folks roll in, I have up on the screen the blog post that we have up on the WP Minute, Automattic versus WP Engine, what we know. It's just a timeline of events if you've not seen it yet. In fact, let me go ahead and copy paste that into the chat. Eric Karkovac and I put this together yesterday. He put it together mostly while I was in a fever sweat, laying on the floor. And we just have the resources to the cease and desist letters that went out and a timeline of events, which has stopped since yesterday. Unless you know something new that we should add, definitely let us know. You can check that out. And then at the bottom, we have a bunch of community notes from folks around the space. I really want to focus on the why today. If we can unpack the why we think this is happening. And, maybe go into, and actually, sorry, Brian, I just remembered I didn't add your latest post. But I will as we go through here. I want to unpack the why we think this is happening. I'm going to start with my why, which I think a lot of people aren't going to be too happy with maybe my stance on it. I don't know. But I started drafting a blog post. I've been hinting about this on the live stream for a while. I started drafting a blog post. Let me just pull it up and just so I can prove it. I'll show it on the screen in the lovely Bear app, which I use. And I started this in July 25th. It might be hard to see for some, but I started in July 25th. It was titled, If I Was Running Automattic. And this came after I saw Matt on the WP Product Talk podcast. And something really hit me with his, I guess, demeanor on that show. And it was almost like, man, he felt a little tired. Just tired is the way that I saw it, a little bit how I feel today with COVID. I started writing out these bullet points about if I was in his position, what would I do? And for many years, we've heard a lot of criticism, of course, of Matt and of course, Automattic. And the thing I rarely hear is, really giving credit to Automattic. I'm not going to make this like an Automattic apology, but I never really hear about, they do put a lot of money. They do put a lot of resources. We might not agree with where it's going and how things are being done, but I do feel like he does take a lot of heat. And at the same time, he has a lot of stuff on his plate. And he seemed like he was tired. And I started to think, if I was in his shoes, the thing I would do is strip out anything that is a distraction at Automattic. And I hate to say it, but I'll say it like simple note. Love the app, love the product. Why are we focusing on it at Automattic? I know any other product that's not WordPress. Get it out of the way and quadruple down on investing in WordPress. That was step 1 of this article I was going to publish. I don't think I'm going to publish it anymore. Step 2 was rip the Band-Aid off. And rip the Band-Aid off is something that I've been hinting at for or talking about for a while, where we might go to WordPress.org one day and see, get the best WordPress at WordPress.com, download that free WordPress in tiny little 8-point font right below it. And that's this rip the Band-Aid off moment I think we're seeing right now happen with WP Engine. And this is what's interesting to me, because I don't think this is a typical map blow-up response. I think this is a calculated thing, and he sees WP Engine as this particular threat to Automattic. And Automattic is the vehicle, in his eyes, I'm not saying this is how I perceive it, Automattic is the vehicle to keep WordPress alive because of all the investment and commitment he's had through it. And I think we are really challenged with this particular moment because we don't understand it fully, the details internally. It's easy to punch up. We're not really punching down to him, we're punching up to him, I think, in a lot of these situations. And I think he is doing this for WordPress, the software, not for WordPress, the community. And this is why this is such a challenging thing right now. He sees WP Engine as a threat. He would have to go this nuclear, even though I don't like that phrase. And he's doing it in a way where he thinks that this is the right move to protect Automattic and protect WordPress. And I guess I would say I would agree with this position. I don't agree how it rolled out, like a lot of things. But I agree that if I was in his shoes, I would also do my damnedest to defend and protect Automattic, because he sees something happening at WP Engine, I feel, and maybe above that with Silver Lake, where he's like, yeah, this is the move I'm gonna make. And I mean, is it fever Matt like he had last time, or is it calculated? No, this is a commercial defense I have to make. I think it's a commercial defense he has to make. And again, I don't agree with it, or the way that it rolled out, but I understand why he's doing it. And I do feel like, yeah, big corps who are using WordPress to this degree should also give back. Anyway, that's my long-winded approach to how I perceive this moment, and we can break it into different parts. Let me start with you, Brian, because maybe you can address the WP Engine stuff more specifically, or you can defend, I know not defend, but you can present your position in this and how you see it.
Yeah, I've written a bit about it. I think the smallest summary I can say is that I agree there's a problem, and I don't know that I fully agree with the solution that's being taken. I'm also not 100% convinced that the problems at WP Engine are something Matt needs to solve versus letting the free market and the community sort of find their way to solving it. But at the end of the day, I do think that he needs to really, I think he's very concerned about the future of WordPress. And I think that's coming much more clear. And I think we should all be concerned. And it's not that WordPress, the code base, it's really WordPress, the ecosystem, and the health of everything around it and the contributions. And I'm not going to say it's not that he's not, innocent in the problems that we're having, but it is definitely a turning point, and it's definitely, not unreasonable for him to start saying, hey, like you said, rip the Band-Aid off. If you're here for WordPress, these are my rules, and we're going to start following them. And I think that's totally fine. I would just love to see it start there, and then start cutting off people from plugin updates. Like, that's fine. Maybe, for those of us who actually, like, this is affecting us and we're hearing from clients now, like, give us a little runway here, and say what you want and say what you expect, and let people make up their minds. And I don't think that's an unreasonable thing for him to say. And I don't think it's unreasonable for WordPress to need to focus this intensely.
Courtney, anything you want to add to that?
Largely, we're in agreement on those things. I've been 3 years at GoDaddy, and Matt and I spoke after his COVID fever, and he knows he can connect and chat, and that's good. that's really in the past at this point, and contributing is very much forefront on my mind constantly. A lot of the work that I get to do, it's an honor to do, is in the context of communicating. As a WordCamp organizer this past week, I organized Contributor Day, and it was a blast. And I loved being able to reach out to all the people that make WordPress possible, that were ready to onboard more contributors. It's amazing. I have friends at some of these other companies that have been working on their strategy as well for how they show up to contribute, and seeking ways to open the opportunities for more contribution on the clock. It's something that I am working on as well at my place of employment. And it's also something I'm working on with Hari Shankar, who is employed by Automattic. Together, we're the ones driving the new contributor dashboards experience. And what I began with was looking around in the rest of open source beyond the WordPress bubble, because surely this is not unique to us getting funding for contribution. And I found some tooling that helps us assess where we currently are and making it more transparent. I've shared with Matt on a couple of calls recently, like other Twitter spaces and such, that the pledges for Five for the Future, from the perspective of a team rep, well, they can be kind of gamed and inflated. And also it could be people contribute in bursts. Some of my coworkers were also lead organizers for other parts of WordCamp US that took more effort than the part I played. And they will contribute heads down in bursts for months, and then they're done for, 9 months out of the year or something. So the who shows up on the daily and what gets done for contributing, I want to see more transparency involved in that. And I shared on the Twitter spaces that Andrew Palmer and Tia were hosting. Matt came to that one, and I shared that at times it feels like a moving target. If we see that the WordPress Foundation page has been modified, that feels like it has shifted. And the wording on that one was just revised recently. I would like to see Brian's idea of, you got to give us a little bit of runway. This isn't fair to the visitors of these websites to be caught in the crossfire of all of this. And so be clear in what the governance and the rules are, give people time, and increase transparency in the communication. My question I was up first for Matt's Q&A. I usually try to ask him questions at these big flagship WordCamps. My question to him was largely around, tell us what you've been doing behind the scenes, because we don't know that story. This is all like fresh news to us. And so it's eroding trust to just bring something like that. And I feel like he knows that. I do think that we need to fund contributors. There's no question in my mind. I was delighted to help give money to people that were table leads at Contributor Day that were not there on any organization's dime. If any of the organizations were listed on the sponsor page, people that were there not employed by those organizations or sent by those organizations got a little bit of funds for it, just for being there. And that was amazing. And I got to help with some of that. But, there's a lot more to do. And there's a lot more that needs to happen across all the teams inside of WordPress, which are found at make.wordpress.org. You can see all the teams. There's a lot of work that needs to happen. And we do need to take care of the commons, but we need to have clear governance that says, here is how we will take care of the commons and what the expectation is, not just an aspirational goal, but be very transparent with it, and also reasonable in the deadlines.
Yeah, no, I agree. But let me ask you this question, Courtney, because this event that's happening now is really exposing a feeling that I've had for a while, that open source WordPress, to Matt, and not that any of us have never questioned this before, but the open source WordPress side is really for the end user, right? Like he again, me just theorizing here with, again, just COVID brain, but he's open sourcing WordPress, and this open source WordPress and this community of WordPress, I think in his heart actually is for the end user to enable somebody to enjoy using WordPress. Largely all of us here watching and going to WordCamps are, we're enjoying building WordPress too and shaping it and all this other stuff. But I think he really feels he's delivering the end user experience for users. And while he knows that we are important, I think it's his gift. Again, this is his gift to the world, is I'm giving everyone WordPress to use it. And that's really where his focus is in this. And he will defend that till the dying breath. And unfortunately, us are the cannon fodder along the way, which is, I know, a harsh thing. But my direct question is, because you are somebody who gives back tremendously, right? If there's 242 people watching right now, as far as I can see on the StreamYard thing, and everyone should be giving you a round of applause for all the work that you've done. But I'm curious, like, knowing what you know now, like, does this shift your desire to want to give back to the community you thought we had? Like, I thought we all had control of this, and after this experience, like, oh damn, you can just turn off .org like that. I guess we don't all have like the control and power of WordPress, and maybe forking WordPress isn't so easy. What are your thoughts on like how this shakes the community?
I think your concept of Matt's legacy being, I don't know if I've ever shared this actually, and I hope Matt kind of hears this. I was sitting in a classroom one evening late at night trying to get content for my students published somewhere. It was 2005, probably. And WordPress was, I want to say it was like around 2. There was a version of WordPress that never actually shipped. So it was the version before that I got. I think it was like 2.3 that I started using. And whenever I found it, friend of mine recommended it to me, and I went looking, trying to figure out what's WordPress. And I read the 4 freedoms that begin with number 0. But that's an open source thing. That's not a WordPress thing. So I read the 4 freedoms and what that means. And I thought, that's something that I fully support. That's the first exposure. I had already used Moodle. I had already used Joomla. I was not new to open source holistically. I mean, you could even argue at that time, Linux, when I was in college, was very much open source. I've been an open source user for a long time, but that was the first that I really grasped the concept of what we're doing as a project. So that's some years ago. I've been with the project in some sense, using it since, version 2. Knowing what I know now, I'm still thankful for the way in which Automattic does financially contribute to the project. I think that there are areas to improve the trust. So ways to improve the trust. We know that Matt shared his receipts. Cool. I would be delighted if we knew what the actual expenses of the project are. I'm not asking for more of Matt's personal receipts. What I'm asking for is, let's be transparent in what we know about the expenses of the project. Let's understand how much of that is Automattic or Audrey or Matt's pocket, like just who's covering what pieces of which things. How can others that wish to also help cover some of that do so? We already split up the costs of Meetup among those that are sponsors, global sponsors of camps. So there are some areas of the project where the costs are distributed, but I think that there are some areas where we could continue to improve that, continue to strengthen the trust so that we don't end up in this spot. If I could rewind things, Morten really pushed on governance. I so appreciate Morten. It didn't quite go where it needs to go. And I don't know the reservations necessarily from project leadership about that, because at the time I was taking some years away from the project, having little babies. So I was a little bit out of the mix. I was watching some stuff watching the streams online, but I really wasn't following as closely at that era. But I would love to understand, what is the reservation in publishing this information? What is the reservation in encouraging additional hosts to take part? How do we educate the WordPress ecosystem about how the rest of open source tends to fund itself? Everything from how do we write a proposal to having that proposal get accepted, I don't want to get bogged down in overwhelm of procedures, but I feel like we're almost so opposed to having procedures as a project that now we're seeing eventually this had to happen.
Right. Brian, in your latest article, you said, I'll never understand the crowd that believes contributing to WordPress is just lining Matt's pockets. I mean, in the sense that it helps Automattic raise capital, sure, but WordPress has been helping us all in the ecosystem make more money. Let's not take that for granted. Not a complete Matt apologist. I feel like you and I align together on this stuff. Your thoughts so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think the breakdown I was trying to say is that there's code for WordPress.org, and then for WordPress, the core software, and then there's WordPress.org, which is this much wider sort of thing that's just different but extremely important. And I think what we saw this week when the plugin directory APIs were shut off to somebody, I think what we saw was that, we have the code and it's open source and it's this great thing, but what's really made WordPress popular is something like a plugin directory that aggregates all of this open source code and provides it. And Matt controls the aggregation and delivery of all of this open source code that all of us were kind of just taken for granted. We were all just kind of, letting Matt kind of be in charge of that. And I think that was fine because I think it helped us out a lot. But I think now people are starting to realize, okay, this is what I'm contributing to, which is totally fine. But you just have to be prepared to say, like, if he wants to flex and shut those things off, he totally has a right to do it. And we were all more than happy to let him host that. Oh, I'm getting an echo.
Yep. Speaking of man, Matt, I think you're still playing the live stream.
Hello.
So I can hear you twice.
You can hear me twice.
Are you still playing the live stream?
I'm not playing the live stream, but I am in the StreamYard. So
let me just edit your mic settings. Do echo cancellation. How about now?
Hello.
Okay, great. We can hear you now. Perfect. Matt, thanks for joining. As we mentioned, we were just talking about the articles and stuff that folks were posting, but I know you have a short amount of time.
I've got 5 minutes for y'all. So what would you like to talk about?
Thankfully, it's called the WP Minute.
We've got minutes. And by the way, I hope you appreciate that I am doing all these things, and WP Engine is not showing up to these things. They're not going on press. They're not talking to journalists. They're not and why is that?
Yeah. Matt, so I think the biggest question, I think maybe on a lot of people's minds, is why go this nuclear route in front of our biggest stage in the U.S. When so much of this impacts our friends, family, colleagues of many years in a short amount of time? Why the nuclear option now?
I have been trying to avoid this for years. Been meeting with them, and as their text messages that they published showed, I was trying to call them and everything and say, hey, I don't want to do this, but they just kept delaying. So, I was really trying everything I could to not have this happen, but they refused to do any sort of deal and, stop violating the WordPress trademark.
Does this,
Matt?
Go ahead, Courtney.
I would wonder moving forward if we could see more documented policies, basically, about so that to move forward, we need to rebuild trust in the ecosystem. And what I would like to see is documenting what the appropriate amounts basically are in certain instances and the consequences of that, and maybe a little bit more runway if customers and their website visitors become collateral. A little bit more runway.
Again, I've been running WordPress.org for 21 years.
I'm aware.
This has never
been there
happened
most of that time.
before. I don't expect it to ever happen again. WP Engine is uniquely bad in how they've behaved and how they've taken advantage of the free WordPress.org resources, how they've done this legal thing that now covers all this WordPress.org Slack and members and everything like that. They are unique among all the hosts. So this is really just a Silver Lake WP Engine thing. It has nothing to do with anyone else.
Matt, just help us understand. My theory is when you say open source WordPress is for everyone, my take is everyone is the end user. Like this work that we all put into it, you especially, is for the end user to experience and enjoy WordPress. Is that who you think of when you defend open source so vehemently? Is the end user to publish words and to get access to this WordPress thing? That's the question. Is it that end user?
Yeah, I mean, we design software and we have a vision for it, and hosts deliver that, and WP Engine modifies WordPress and they deliver their version of it, right? So they hack it to remove the meetups widget and the news widget right now. They hack it to remove the attribution for WooCommerce to make money, and they just steal that for themselves. So they completely control your WordPress. You're not like using our WordPress, you're using their modified version of it when you run WordPress on WP Engine. That's why I say WP Engine is not WordPress. So they can also hack it to change the update servers or whatever else they want to do if they want to provide service to their customers. Because when they promise on their website, we provide updates and plugin updates, they even charge for plugin updates. By the way, you can get plugin updates for free from Jetpack or any other host. They charge $3 a month for it. So they should be providing that service.
Brian, any question from you before I?
Yeah, I think the one question a lot of people had was like, some of us were WP Engine customers just because they've been around for a long time. We have a lot of clients. This morning, I'm already getting emails from clients because their sites are going down, obviously due to issues where plugins are trying to update and are failing. I don't think it's catastrophic, but I think what would have been the reasoning against saying what the situation was going to be, and then saying and vote with your dollars to a different host, and then saying you have a reasonable amount of time, a few months or a few weeks to make that transition and get that community support.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually, and something I've been hearing a lot. So I'm going to see if there's something we can do because, WP Engine, by the way, 1.5 million sites, they're using millions of dollars of WordPress.org's resources in compute, CPU time, engineering time, everything like that to serve their customers. So we've been giving them that for free. They're paying nothing for it. They have no trademark license. They have no anything. So I realize the customers are impacted. I'm going to see if we can do something to help them out today. And then, say like maybe midnight on September 30th, WP Engine has until then to like set up their mirrors of WordPress.org and everything. All the code is open source. They can mirror, they can run their own update servers. They can run their own everything. Like it's all open source code, so they can run it.
What if this creates more mirrors of
We're kind
WordPress?
of at 5 minutes though. So if you have a final question?
Yeah, last question. What if this opens up more mirrors of WordPress.org, which was something that was like marketplaces in the past? Is that something that could happen from this if
That would
WP
be
Engine did
amazing.
decide?
If they wanted to run a mirror of the plugin directory and the theme directory and the update servers and everything like that, they're welcome to do so. It's all open source code. It's all GPL. So they're if they have the technical ability and want to spend the money to do so, they're welcome to. I have spent tens of millions of dollars to do that and provide that free to the WordPress community, which they are using for free. So hopefully they can do the same for their customers because they're making $500 million a year charging people for WordPress updates, WordPress security, etc. So, all right, I've got to run. Thank you so much.
Matt. Thanks, Matt. All right, so there's that. I don't know how much that clears things up, but maybe I'll have a chance to sit down and talk with him in the past. I mean, or in the future. I think that it doesn't help. It's certainly just his point of view on WP Engine, and I think it sounds like we're all kind of doing that. Like, I mean, any web host is, and certainly certain levels of obviously giving back. And I think hopefully that's the clarity that comes out of this. Once again, I will go back to my original theory of this is a rip the Band-Aid off moment for him to be more strict clear, if it's even clear, but this is like the line in the sand where moving forward, comment from you, Courtney, obviously on this, but like I think all web hosts moving forward are going to be like, okay, we saw that line in the sand with WP Engine, and I guess we all have to now think about that more clearly. And maybe more web hosts now turn to him and go, should we do that deal now before this happens again to us in the future? Yeah, so I don't have a strong takeaway. Obviously, short amount of time that he had here, but maybe we'll talk to him in the future about it.
I know budget season planning is going on right now for next calendar year. And I encourage folks not only to look at if your place of employment is leveraging WordPress, I would encourage everyone to consider, not just because of this instance, but also because of the people that you know. If you're watching, you know people that are contributing to WordPress, I promise. So a couple of us right here. So, and I'm expecting Matt to get props on 6.7, this Matt to get props on 6.7, I think. So look at the stack of tech that you've got, the open source that you depend upon, whether that be WordPress and or the rest. My employer is also sponsoring OpenJS, the JavaScript project. We are also sponsoring the work in PHPCS, which trickles over to WPCS, the code sniffer areas, making sure that that compliance is there. We want to make sure that those things stay on. And PHPCS was nearly in trouble this year, like nearly gone this year. So it's really important that you look at all of the dependencies, whether that is in what you're serving to your customers, or that is the tools that you depend on for the job that you have, or any layer of the organization. Know your open source dependencies and take a look, because we don't want that person in Nebraska to not be able to pay the rent.
Yeah.
I think people misunderstand how much we all rely on this huge, the modern website now, from the plugin directory to Node and Composer and all these tools, coding standards tools, all these sorts of things. It's modern websites are really a house of cards, and everything from PHP, all the way up to WordPress. These things are all extremely fragile and extremely run by open source communities in a lot of ways. And I think Matt's just drawing out the difference a little bit here in a very aggressive way, that we need to start saying, hey, if he's going to start charging for access to the plugin directory, then of course I think people who build plugins will have to start saying, okay, is that where I want to put my code or not? And what are the alternatives? I'm going to put it on GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft. I'm going to put it in other places. So I think it's drawing attention to a much larger issue in a very fast way, aggressively accelerated way.
Yeah. Yeah. Say Reed had posted a question. Sorry, I meant to read that. How do we square? I spend millions on WordPress and I am charging millions for WordPress sub licenses. I don't know. I tend to think that this is the moment where, things change in WordPress, and it shows how brittle this all is. I saw a meme photo the other day. I don't know what it was, like a bunch of like shapes and stuff like stacked on top of each other, and there's like WordPress.org as like the toothpick that was holding the whole thing up. And I was like, if you remove that, there's a lot of this stuff crumbles. My question is does open source WordPress, the software, win or continue to lead the way after all of this? 5-6 years ago, whatever it was, 8 years, I can't remember, when Gutenberg was announced, we saw an exodus of, wow, we don't want this thing. And a lot of people were like, I'm done, I'm trying something new, I'm leaving. And I saw some people trickle back in. This is largely different. And what do we think? Do we think the market just says, no, we're here because we're still going to use WordPress, and we're still going to use the ecosystem, and we're still going to connect with our community, even though that's the answers we just got from from Matt? Like, does WordPress still win at the end of the day because it is open source, and we've all committed so much into this.
I shared a clip recently from, if anyone's watched the movie Ender's Game, the way we win matters. And if you've watched the movie, you'll get the reference that's there. Winning WordPress is not done yet. I think that the vast majority right now of people that are accessing the internet have no idea what's powering the websites that they're visiting. If they host websites, they may or may not know that it's WordPress running it. Even if they could see WordPress if they log in, they may or may not even do that right. So they might just have someone to publish all of that. I think we're not at the point yet, though we're starting to be seen outside of the WordPress bubble. For those that might be tuning in, I think that there's a lot of people that are in the WordPress bubble that think this is really the end. I'm not there yet. I tend to think that the average people have no idea what's powering the internet at all, other than I turn my computer on. So I don't think that we're running that risk yet. But I will say that the way that we get through this current cycle of news and what's going on will impact that. So it could still be going in either direction. But the idea of, in Ender's Game, the way that we win, it's not just that WordPress takes over 50% or 80% or whatever. It's how we get there. It's how that we sustain ourselves through this moment and how we choose to show up and navigate this challenge.
Yeah. I had a bunch of thoughts that I had notes that I had written down before the live stream, of course. And then Matt showing up has sort of changed that slightly. When I hear people say, we got to replace him, fire him, air quotes, not going to happen. But let's say that does happen. I don't know. I don't know what we get after that. And that's the part that really worries me the most is who do you replace Mullenweg with? Right? Like strictly speaking, somebody who sits in between Automattic or sits at the top of Automattic and WordPress.org. What do we get if we replace Matt? A board of directors? Like the same thing coming from the top of Silver Lake into Automattic? Like, is that what we get? And is that what we want? It's hard to defend after that 5-minute spiel that we just saw. But I also worry, like, up until this point, there was a chaos in Matt, this ambiguity, which also had like this weird balance. In other words, WordPress wasn't. The biggest question is like, what is WordPress? And I think he keeps that chaos going of like, what is WordPress, straddling the middle line. Whereas, you replace Matt, you bring in a CEO from another experience, and they go, it's Webflow now, it's Drupal now, and they just go, those direct markets. And there's something ambiguous about WordPress I just can't put my finger on that I think I don't mind that there is no direct path, as weird as that sounds. What do we get if we replace Matt? Anybody have thoughts on that?
I do have thoughts on that because I do see a lot of replace Matt and the governance project and all those sorts of things. And I think it's really hard to articulate a better situation. Say we put together a group, would it be every large company that has the most money? So WP Engine gets a very big seat at that table. I don't think there's going to be a way that's going to make everyone happy. I would say I think people should read Yost's blog post that he posted this week, where he just talks about, not replacing Matt, but just augmenting him with a group of industry leaders that can at least sit around and give advice. Because, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people in our community that I think everybody trusts. And I think that we would all love it if they had an ear to the king, so to speak. But, the idea that Matt's just going to decide not to own WordPress and shut down .org and call it a day. Like, I just don't really think that's a conversation that's going to take us anywhere constructive, because I don't really see it happening. I think people are very confused about Matt owning WordPress.org and then this WordPress Foundation, and they get very confused that the foundation is some sort of avenue to controlling WordPress, and it's just not, and that's just not the way it works. And so, I think on the other hand, getting Matt to just bring together some more of the smart people that are building this ecosystem, whether he listens to them or not, but at least we can like have them in a room and get their opinions on it.
That's roughly my thoughts. Like this project is Matt's life work. I don't see him stepping away, and I'm not necessarily even still asking that he do so. I do think that it would be insane infrastructure for everyone to fork, except for Pup Press. If anyone's seen Pup Press, thumbs up on that. My dog's gonna get a seat on the fork of WordPress.
I was like, what the hell is Pup Press?
it's a great. You need to go look it up. Pup
Okay.
Press. Yeah, someone forked WordPress. It was the folks over at Dolly. So that was fun. But serious forks, I don't think are a realistic option. What does governance look like moving forward? No, up until days ago, I wouldn't dare whisper this word because it would evoke Morton, and Morton's probably watching. So hi, friend. But as I've learned about other open source projects and looked at others that have models similar to ours and what their community has faced, and also how their version of, I know Matt doesn't appreciate the title BDFL, but that's the model that we're operating under, right? And so it was a community open source project in comparison to Woo, that is a commercial entity backing an open source project. So there's some nuances to that. But other open source projects that have a BDFL, what are the takeaways that we can learn from them, and or how their community that is dependent upon that communicates back and forth with that person in authority? And how do we just continue? I mean, I'm on a soapbox basically, but let's just continue documenting every little nuance that we can document about, here's the policies and procedures, so it's really transparent. And I think that itself would rebuild the trust that needs to happen, because I understand WP Engine, I understand the concerns of how much they have or have not given. I understand the concerns that my friends that have worked there have faced as well. It's just still, though, if it could happen to them, could it happen to anyone else? And so document. And it's not fun to document, but it's the way to build trust and stick to it.
I want to hear from the audience. If you have any questions, use hashtag Q for the question. Is that what the kids do? Hashtag Q? Q colon? I don't know. Put
Mark,
a Q.
help us
Ask. Yeah, Mark, let us know. Is it lit? Is it Q? Tell me, and I'll search for it, and we'll try to answer those questions as we wrap up. And also, leave a comment. Let me know. Are we still choosing WordPress after all of this? Is this still our favorite CMS of choice? I mean, I know this is biased as a WordPress podcast, but tell me what you feel about picking WordPress moving forward. I reached out to Jonathan Nolan as well to see if he wanted to join to talk about his take on the Ghost side of things. He couldn't make the live stream, but that would have been a great sort of counter to this conversation. Last question for the panel. Again, as we wrap up, contributing to WordPress, is it good enough that we make plugins, service customers, talk about WordPress, promote WordPress, and support our community? Is that good enough? Or do we need to engage in the formalities of, let's say, Five for the Future and all the tireless work that Courtney does as part of Make teams? Where do we draw the lines? Like, I think we're hearing it from Matt on how he draws the lines. How do we draw the lines? How do you both feel like, you're giving back, you're contributing? Where do we draw those lines?
I want to give a shout out at this point to Tara Clays. Amazing person. I was a subcontractor before Tara, before I was working at GoDaddy. And Tara and I were chatting the one day about what I was doing with the WPCC, the WP Community Collective, as a means of, Matt has said that the foundation will never fund contributors out of the foundation's expenses. And there's a tweet for that, and I can track it down for the recording for later. But I think if your business is dependent upon it, you have some means of giving back. And if your give back is, I personally do not have time to go to all of the places and find all of the things and figure out where to do whatever. One of the alternatives that Tara proposed was that she would be up for paying the equivalent of a premium license per year as a donation to fund the work. At the time, we were doing fundraising for Alex Stein to be sponsored for half a year part-time in accessibility. Alex has done so, and that was amazing. But that concept of, at any scale, if you're really dependent upon this for your livelihood, then there are means for contributing to the project. And I would love to continue increasing that transparency so that if someone says, I gave financially, that it's not frowned upon when compared against, show me your core props on a release, right? That's not an equal comparison level.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add to that. This is what I wrote about this morning, which is that there are the different levels of contributing, and it's definitely contributing to make plugins, make tutorials, do all that writing and all that stuff, and that stuff is important, and we need more of it, and we need more of that from the community. And I argued that I think Matt maybe undervalues that side a little bit, but at the same thing, we also need core contributors. We really do. We really need people working on core. And if you're the smallest of businesses, there's amazing developers that you can literally pledge $5 a month to. And it may not seem like a lot, but it's just the tiniest bit. That these are just core contributors. Almost all the ones that you can sponsor, they're not working for Matt. They're not working for Automattic. They're just there. And the community could really put in a lot more effort, I think, to just throw a few dollars a month. I think it would add up. And then there's that middle section, which is all of the .org infrastructure. And I think that also needs contributions. But at the end of the day, that is Matt's playground. And so you do have to, when you put something in the photo directory, when you put a plugin in the plugin directory, you do have to do it with the caveat that you're putting it in Matt's playground. And if he wants to bring more contributors to that playground, he'll probably have to give them a little bit more of that transparency and a little more representation on that side of it. But I think those other ends, the content and the core code, those two are just critical.
There's a couple of folks that I see over in the comments section that I know would be happy to receive funds as core contributors. A couple of them are core committers, and then some. Please raise your hands over in the comments to let people know. I don't want to out folks that may or may not want outed. So please let folks know if you would like to be recognized for seeking funding, wanting to be funded. Also, Aaron Jorbin, nice transition there. This weekend, you see these instruments back here? I play the Aaron Jorbin's question is, what are we doing for ourselves this weekend? Well, I've got kids, so I'm going to do whatever the schedule is for them. Maybe a soccer game because it's the fall in the Northeast. But also, this is an electric 5-string mandolin. And over here is an electric 7-string violin. And I plan to play them very loudly and aggressively.
Oh, Courtney, you know what you're going to, now Brian's going to go get his collection. I have this thing about people with guitars in the background. You all want to show it off. No,
right there it is. Right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
I think Brian has a Mando too.
Yeah, he's got a whole piano behind him. Turn around. Let's go.
I know.
Yeah, you know what? I can't get rid of that piano. So that piano is my albatross. We do actually, there's Eddie Vedder hosts a annual music thing in Doheny Beach this weekend. So I will be at Eddie Vedder's music festival down in Doheny for at least a couple days or a couple parts of the afternoon for small chunks of time where we could find babysitting. So it'll be a musical weekend for both of us.
It's fantastic. I want to workshop.
Jam like online somehow. Yeah. It'll be terrible, but it'll be fun.
This is what I mean. People with guitars in the background. This is what happens. The whole podcast gets derailed. No, just kidding. I do want to workshop this idea in the future, not on this episode, but what does a new mirror of .org look like, and how could that even happen? right? Folks in the audience, stew on it. Hit me up with your ideas. I'd love to theory craft that on another episode of the WP Minute. Let's hit some of these questions before COVID Brain takes over and Brian has to go as well. Let's just jump into some of these things. I'm going to rapid fire some of this stuff. Matt said WPE was uniquely bad. Thoughts on that? Quickly for me, not bad, but yeah, I think anyone making that much money should also do more, is my general feeling. Anyone else want to hop on it? If not, I'll go next to the next question.
I'm sure Courtney can't hop on it.
No.
I don't think they're uniquely bad, but I do think people should be aware that their tools are very popular and like ACF and local, and we do want those tools to be well supported, and we want core to be well supported, and they make a lot of money. They can do it.
How do you feel about Pressable offering to buy out WPE contracts? Good faith tactics, speak out against a competitor. I think that's just Matt saying, hey, put up a landing page and say that we'll buy out the WP Engine contracts. I think that's about as far as that one goes. Who's next on Matt's list? Hopefully not the WP Minute. What if Scott Kingsley Clark? What if a company's size of WPE actually did a complete Five for the Future with millions of dollars of contributors and 2 to 3 times the size of Automattic contributors? Listen, I've been saying this when GoDaddy was under fire from Matt last time. I forgot what I titled the post. I think it was, what if GoDaddy created a WordPress or something like that? Yeah, it would be. This is my point with WP Engine and my time when I wrote about GoDaddy. Yeah, these are big entities that could bring in 20, 30 developers. I mean, it's a lot of money, of course, and on paper it doesn't make sense to these brands. But man, wouldn't that be a thing of, like I said before, calling Matt's bluff with air quotes and these bigger entities to come and say, okay, here's 30 devs and front-end designers, let's go. Let's see what happens. And I think when you'd have that many people representing the project, it would make a tremendous impact. So I think it would be good. Anybody else want to chime in? Nope. Question, thoughts that Matt is basically saying sponsoring WordCamps doesn't count as contributing to the community. Matt is basically saying sponsoring WordCamps doesn't count as contributing. I don't know if I particularly...
jump on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So yes, no is my answer officially. But also I would encourage folks to look at how other open source projects handle their events and what the event sponsors get for it. So when I was at Open Source Summit, it was interesting to see that part of the agreement of the sponsors is that they either have a slot that is their company presenting something, or they get to select somebody to be a speaker at an occasion. I think that there's some nuances to this that I want to be very thoughtful in this. My team at work directly handles sponsoring events. So yes, you'll find me in booths at WordPress related events, but also I think that there's some increased transparency that we could do there as well around what sponsorships get you, to really consider it if it's a marketing or if it's not a marketing effort. Because if you think about flagship camps like WordCamp US, just a thought, how many of you interacted last week at WordCamp US with people that are end purchasers, that are not staff from some other company that happens to be there? Just curious on the attendee breakdown, and we'll see probably some of those numbers after the surveys are compiled at the end. That was my non-answer, an answer that's a non-answer.
Another question that came through. When will WP Engine pledge 8% of the revenue to the WordPress community? As bad as some make it seem from Matt, that are around the ballpark for Automattic. Let's hold them to the same standards. Okay. Yeah, I am still kind of neutral on that. Like I feel like everyone who contributes to WordPress, it's helping everyone. So everybody should be contributing to WordPress. But we could debate the 8% and how much other stuff WPE does or doesn't. I saw another question that didn't have you organized a WordCamp? I have not, but Courtney's 70,000 of them? No.
I've attended
right.
a lot of them over the years. Usually ones I could drive to, in the Mid-Atlantic region. I've only started going to ones that require plane trips in the last several years with my current employer. I have only organized a contributor day at WordCamp US. I've been a table lead at a lot of them. I have volunteered for literally the very first way I contributed to WordPress was I volunteered to check in guests for WordCamp Mid-Atlantic in 2009 before we had WordCamp Central as our governing group.
Brian, were you going to say something?
I was going to say also, Courtney, like there's a difference between organizing, volunteering, and sponsoring, and there's a lot of overlap.
Yep.
A lot of sponsors help organize, help volunteer, but yeah,
Yep.
it's not just sponsoring. You can organize, you can volunteer. Those are 100% contributions to the community that a lot of people do outside of their working hours.
Derek Hansen, a friend of the show, had him on, and also an automatician. If someone ignored your request for years or months and it could harm your business and potentially millions of others, what would you do to protect everyone that you could? Again, we don't know the full details, and I think that's part of the friction here is, has it been years or months? Has he directly been asking, or it just feels like, and maybe we'll see it when, if it does get to court, though I don't think it will. I have something tells me they'll come to an agreement and they probably will start paying to avoid all the legal stuff. But it does feel more like he was just maybe sick of something not happening at WP Engine, or they were about to do an IPO or do something even crazier. And he was like, I'm going to put a stop on that. Again, because we don't have all the details.
Yeah, he could publish a paper trail and take it to the community, I think, and hopefully he's ready for that.
Yeah. Let's see. Any other questions here? Wow, you should be supporting the guy that has given you great income for years. Talk about biting the hand that feeds you. Wow. Listen, I can also see both sides of this too, 100%. Like, it's hard for me, to be in the position to criticize. Why I always criticize Matt in leadership and not Automattic. And I've said this, and I know I come out sometimes as an Automattic apologist because I know so many people at Automattic, like the folks on this panel know so many folks at Automattic, and I think they all do great work. And sometimes I don't think it's fair to beat up the folks that represent the 4,000-ish hours that are being committed, because I think a lot of them are trying to get WordPress done right for the good of us all.
I would also say the same. I mean, I first met Matt 2009 in New York. All along, my encouragement is always in the direction of let's document, and make policies that we can all adhere to. And Matt has been approachable for me over the years. I would not be where I am now and have been teaching WordPress in schools and boot camps and to adults that were retraining during the pandemic without Matt and Mike starting this thing, and without them continuing to show up. I think that it is still absolutely important to recognize that there is good in what we have here, for sure. And I want to see that thrive and continue. So my own personal take is that I might not agree with the way in which things are unfolding right now, but I've been civil, I've been approachable and friendly, and I feel that Matt has the same respect back for me, but I don't know.
Another question just came in. What do you think about the results, or the current results of the Twitter poll? And let me just throw that up on screen. I did put it in chat. Whoops, cut everybody else off. I did put it in chat before. Let me try to zoom in here. So definitely looks like it was probably dropped in the Automattic Slack channel. because the results went from resoundingly Automattic in the last place to Automattic just running away with election season. 869 votes, and Automattic is at 58% in favor. This is just a Twitter poll that I put out, Automattic versus WP Engine. I'm with Automattic, certainly winning the way. So, hey, if anyone is watching from WP Engine, throw it in your Slack. Don't forget to subscribe to the WP Minute. Throw it in your Slack and vote for your preferred stance there. Got a couple more questions, and then Brian and I and everyone else have to leave. What do we have? here. I saw some other. Do other WordPress agencies need to get a trademark license as well, or have gotten one in the past? First time I've heard about it since this whole debacle came to the front and center. But it is something I worry about now. That I call myself the WP Minute. I'm not trying to guide anyone to say that I am WordPress or this is official Automattic news or anything like that. But yeah, I think we're all sort of scratching our heads. Can we even use that anymore? I don't know. I don't have the answer.
I 3D printed WordPress logo earrings and gave them out at WordCamps over the past year. I didn't have them with me last time, but I'm curious to see where this goes to. Earrings.
Do you think Matt is doing this for what he perceives to be the greater good of WordPress or for the money? Again, like I said at the beginning, this is him preserving WordPress for the end user, and Automattic is the best vehicle in his mind to do it. How I see it. That's how I see it.
I would agree. I would agree that he perceives what he's doing to be for the greater good of WP. I would agree with that part. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know I say this all the time, like he's still not I don't know anymore. I was going to say, like, he's not the CEO who like shows up in Lambo at the WordCamp events or comes in on a helicopter and, so, but I don't know. There's that CEO and then there's this CEO. I don't know which one you want to deal with. At least this one shows up for 5 minutes. I don't know. All right, one last question here, and then we're going to wrap things up. I thought I saw another question. Oh, from my ex-colleague at Pagely, Dave. Good to see you, Dave. Do you feel that WP Engine's popular plugin ACF should count as giving back to the community? I know a lot of, so I don't know. I'm in the middle on this one because it is a commercial plugin. Yeah, it's like super powerful. Tons of people use it. I'm in the middle. Can I be in the middle on this one? I don't feel like it's giving back like fully, but it's a great plugin that they also make money with.
It's one that when I had been working at Modern Tribe and was starting to pivot to teaching in the boot camp, my leaders there indicated specifically, I was asking, hey, what do you need for what is your standard to rank someone as a junior dev or further? And immediately came up. That is one that many of the employers expect that you know inside and out. I would also give a shout out in the chat to Scott Kingsley Clark, who is lead dev at Pods. Again, in the middle. So there is some wording around if you have a community plugin that is considered part of contributing. If there is not the commercial aspect to it, if you don't have a further nudge for any upsells anywhere, it's a tricky spot. I would like to see that hashed out further.
I would say also the developers that work directly on ACF, that team like Ian and Liam and a lot of the people there, they do contribute. What they do requires them to be very, very like leading edge with what's happening in Gutenberg and stuff. And they're in the issues. They're in there. They're working on it. They're contributing it 100%. So also just want to specify there are individuals in these teams that are 100% helping out core WordPress. And then there is a larger company that has a commercial product that, yes, is very popular and important, but is definitely there to keep people in their ecosystem and make money, which, is perfectly fine.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up. We're going to go around the horn really quick. So at the end of the day, for me anyway, Automattic is still the best steward of WordPress, in my opinion. I'm still here for WordPress and the community. Do not like how this all played out, largely like most map bombs that happen. But yeah, I am still, here for WordPress. I'm still behind it and still still excited to be part of the community. And I was just real quick note. I was watching that guy, that live streamer, coding live streamer guy. And what I really hate is when like these guys who are in some other kind of coding architecture and they're like, WordPress is still around. Come on, bruh. Like where have you
PHP.
been? Yeah, like
the Laravel kids are all into. PHP
Yeah,
is,
like
PHP is on its comeback thanks to Laravel and Symfony, I think.
yeah, like what are you doing with your 0.02% of the internet? Okay, that's how I feel.
Thanks to Laravel and their Lambo driving CEO who is
Taylor.
in the code every day and listens to the community for sure.
Brian, your parting words
And
and where we can find you. Where we can find you.
Yeah, so my parting words are that I think we should all just see where this plays out and continue voicing strong opinions, but also just remember that everybody that works at all these companies really are caught in the crosshairs of something bigger. And if you see individual employees posting or whatever, you know what, they're saying what they believe and they're doing what they need to do. So I think people need to be a little nicer in those places. And you can find me at briancords.com, YouTube, Twitter, X, and in all the good Slacks, including WP Minute.
And Courtney.
Brian, you closed that so well. Darn you. Stole my answers, except that mine is CourtneyR.dev. You can find me as CourtneyR_dev on Twitter and most places that use the underscore. If not, try the hash. Really take care of yourselves this week. It's a lot, and I represent one of those organizations that is watching what's going on. Take care of yourselves this week. Thank you for, as a community, how you are on the whole handling this situation. It's hard in all regards. Get yourself real food, not junk food. Get yourself a shower, get some sleep. We'll get through this. And then it is also fine that if you have reached your limit and you need to step away. I had reached my limit not only because I was having young children, but I took 3 years away from this project for a few other reasons. And it's okay to step away, not knowing if you're coming back, but welcome back if you choose to come back. I think I'm waiting to see how this plays out. Yeah, you can find me also in your Slack too.
I've been eating nothing but Oreos on this COVID trip, so probably not good. Everybody else, thanks for watching. Thumbs up if you like today's live stream. Subscribe to the channel. I think I might do another WordPress tutorial if people care anymore after this. Although fitting that the last video posted was about Drupal, so it could have been a sign that it's time to pivot the channel. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Don't forget to share it and let folks know. We'll see you next time on the WP Minute.
Bye, friends.